Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Coffee Show. I'm Prince Hakeem.
I'm Mandela.
And today we have a continued show from last week. This show is about parenting. We were talking about disciplining your child and should you or shouldn't you? What are some ways you should be disciplining your child if you choose to do that and why you would want to discipline your child. This week, we want to give you a little bit more information. We was talking about our feelings about discipline last time. And this time, we're going to give you a little bit more detail and more information about parenting overall. So what do we got for them today?
So I did a little research and I just wanted to be real kind of like research-based and give people some like solid information and things that you could go look up and reference and kind of have a better understanding of different parenting styles and how that contributes to raising your child and what the chances are of how that child is going to come out depending on how you parent.
Yeah.
So we'll get into it.
We'll get into it. And disclaimer, if you discipline your child, if you spank them, we call it beating, like beating your kids.
There's a difference.
There's a huge difference between spanking, paddling,
a belt,
beating,
shoes,
switches,
extension cords,
wiffle bats. Like all those things are like it's actual weapons. So disclaimer is that I don't condone like abuse of children. I think there's appropriate discipline to children. That doesn't mean that you have to like physically cause them harm. But so far as parenting styles, we have four corridors of parenting, right?
So 4 major parenting styles. Okay. You have, you can read off the 4 that you have because you have all 4 of them in front of you.
Let me see if it'll pull this up here.
You're going slow.
I'm sorry.
So you have uninvolved, permissive parenting, authoritative parenting, and authoritarian parenting. So I'll give you a little insight on each, and then you kind of have like a chart that kind of breaks down a little further, right?
Yeah.
So one of the 3 is called authoritarian. In this parenting style, children are expected to follow strict rules established by parents. Failure to follow such rules result in punishment. So these are the parents that really say things like, because I said so, do as I say, not as I do. These parents have high demands. They're usually not very responsive to their children. So when children say like, Mom, I did it because, they're usually like, whatever, I don't want to hear it.
I beat you because I love you.
Yes, that too.
That hurts worse.
They expect their children to behave exceptionally, not make errors, and they have little direction on what they expect from them. So their mistakes are punished, often quite harshly. So these are going to be the parents that like either do beat their kids with something or, if you punish a 2 or 3-year-old for 2 hours, like that's extensive because a child that age, by the time that 2 hours is up, they don't even know what the hell's going on anymore.
After 10 minutes they're done.
Exactly. So despite having such strict rules and high expectations, they do little to explain the reasoning behind their demands and simply expect children to obey without anything else. So these are going to be parents who just kind of give direction. They're like, don't do this, don't do that. You're not allowed to go here. You're not allowed to go there. And there's no explanation. It's just because I said that's what's going to go. That's what's going to go.
I think a lot of parents
and that's I was going to say that's a really more old fashioned way of parenting. A lot of old school parents are like that. That's it's very common to be that way. And I don't want anybody to misconstrue anything because Prince and I are not saying if this is how you parent any of these ways, if this is how you parent, that is wrong. That's not what we're saying at all. We're just giving you the information. And if you say that's me and you think that that's not suitable, then change it.
Yeah.
Because now you have the information of how to go about changing that. And if you see a style that maybe you are parenting in that you do or don't agree with, you can say, oh, I think this other style is maybe more the direction I want to go in. And you can look it up and kind of find some references on how to implement some new practices.
Yeah. It's, to Amanda's point, is that you want to make sure that you're recognizing your own behaviors. Sometimes when you recognize it, you can say, didn't realize it came across that way. Maybe my child is acting out this particular way or not acting a particular way because I'm not implementing these. Because you're a little bit strict on your kids doesn't mean that it's wrong. Like, I think some children need that strict parenting because it was a lack of that in the beginning. So you have to kind of like tighten up as they get older. But to your point, you know, I think if you're punishing your child, if you're, you know, this style of parenting, be more conscious of the time frame of the discipline. If you're disciplining the child for 3 hours and they're like 5 or they're 5 or under, they don't know what's going on.
They don't have an attention span for that amount of time. So they don't comprehend punishment for. And we'll run through this really quick and then the chart, and then probably while he's running through that, I'll look up some time restraints for some things, because there is I'm sure there's something somewhere that I could find really quick that gives you like a amount of time for like punishment.
There's really a time for parents. There's a time.
There is, because I remember when I was in school, we were talking about like timeouts, and somebody was like, you can't put your kid in a corner for like 45 minutes.
Can't.
Because by the time that has passed, it's like they're playing with dust, and like it's gone on way too long already. So it's not punishment anymore. And then there are those parents who like don't believe in punishment. They have like reward systems, and it's kind of like if you lose, you lose, and that's your punishment. It's not me doing something to you. It's as a result of like just the way of life and consequences if you lose something, because the reward is already in place. But we could talk more about that
all day long.
So authoritative parenting is the second style. It's kind of similar to the authoritarian, except authoritative parenting so it's similar in the way of establishing rules and guidelines that children have an expectation of following. But the style itself is a little more democratic in the sense that parents are responsive to their children and they're willing to answer questions. So these are kind of the parents that they expect a lot from their children, and they have set guidelines and expectations, but they do provide some sense of warmth and well-being and feedback and support when they're disciplining or discussing whatever's going on. So this way, if a child fails to meet the expectation, the parent response is more nurturing and forgiving than it is punishment. So the way it describes these parents is that they monitor and impact clear standards for their children's conduct. They're usually assertive, but not intrusive. And their disciplinary methods are supportive rather than punitive. They want their children to be assertive and socially responsible, and emotionally self-regulated as well as cooperative. So it's a way of allowing your kids a space to understand respect and responsibility, but still having parameters for what they're allowed to do and not allowed to do.
And I think for me, that's kind of where I would kind of fall into play, because you got to respect your children as individuals. They're going to think the way they think, feel the way they think, feel the way they feel. And you can't downplay it. You got to give a little love to it and say, listen, I respect you. We can talk about it. I do have these high expectations of you. I do want more from you. However, let's talk about it. We got to get to the meat and potatoes of what's missing here. Some parents can be very dismissive of that. I don't care what you want. So that goes back to the last one. I think with this style, if you take some time and really talk to your child, you get a lot more information that you were missing the whole entire time. You got to think they're like little planets of their own. So things are happening inside of their brain, inside of their body. The information they're taking in from the outside in, they're translating that to something that is significant to them. So when you find out what that means to them and meet it with love and nurturing, you'll be able to have a little bit better relationship with your kid. I mean, it's just, that's what I found. You know, I only have one, and he's about 10, but, you know, the whole time in his whole life, I wanted to know, like, what are you thinking? Like, what are you feeling? And if he tells me something and he may think it's silly, but you can't downplay it. It's like, that was serious to you. You got to think, as a young kid, something this small to us is like this big to them. So they're like, you're downplaying it. Get out of here. That's stupid. That doesn't really feel good. Think about you as an adult. How does that feel?
Or the other side of that is like showing, because we've had some discussion here about communication and in partnership or relationships, and saying things about like valuing somebody else's opinion. And in that parenting style, it's kind of demonstrating that for your child, kind of modeling the communication and the expectation and saying, this is what I expect of you, and this is why. Or, you know, you didn't do this, and this is why there's some consequence to that. So when you're explaining to them, they have a solid understanding of what's going on, and it helps them to kind of capture how can they communicate in the future their expectations of, you know, themselves or somebody else in any relationship, work, friendship, whatever. And kind of gives them a formal example of, this is how I would communicate that I expect this from someone, or that I expect just respect, or whatever it is, appropriate space or whatever. You know, like I've had my friends laugh at me because, you know, I tell my daughter, like, it's fine. If you need some space, you can go to your room, or, you know, whatever. If she needs a moment and she has to close the door, or she's crying and I let her cry. You know, those are things that, you know, a lot of parents will say, like, oh, stop crying. And I understand that, because I know that it's just, for us, it's just annoying sometimes to just hear it. But just instead of saying like, oh, stop crying, like you're just telling them to stop crying. They don't know why you're telling them to stop crying. Is crying a bad thing? Am I crying for the wrong reason?
Right.
Because at the moment, obviously, if they're crying, that feels right.
It's a form of expression. So like you tell somebody, don't express yourself.
And that's pretty much what you're saying.
Yeah.
So when I say to her, it's like, okay, well, I can't talk to you if you're hysterical crying.
Right.
So take a minute, go upstairs, relax, take a moment for yourself in your room. And when you're done, come talk to me.
Yeah.
And this way, I've kind of given her the space to say, like, if you need to cry, fine, go cry. But when you're ready to talk, I'm ready to listen. So you can understand that the expression of that, of being sad or being upset or disappointed or whatever, is okay. But the rationale behind that is that nobody can hear you when you're being like over the top dramatic.
And like you said, to your point, and I'm really appreciative of that part, is that, hey, not stop crying. It's, I can't talk to you. This is not even... Like,
if you want help fixing this...
Yeah, I got to be able to understand what's going on.
Yeah, and that's part of, like, nurturing that communication part, is that I get that your expression of, like, just being upset is crying, and that's fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being upset. There's nothing wrong with crying. However, no one can hear you when you're doing that.
And that's, so, like, that translates when you become an adult. It's
exactly. When you're being, and that's why I say it like that, because I know that sometimes, like, even me, when you get mad or upset and you're screaming and you're yelling and you're like over the top angry or emotional or whatever, sometimes it is hard for people to just hear you, because you don't know what trauma somebody's been through. You don't know what people have dealt with before you. You don't know if maybe they've never seen communication, or that kind of communication could be intimidating, or whatever it is. Some people get really flustered around people that are emotional. Like, they see somebody crying and they're super uncomfortable. So
I get that way sometimes.
So they don't know what to say, because you're like, I don't want to intrude on the fact that she's over here crying.
I kind of want to hug you, but I kind of don't. I don't know what that.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's one of those things where you're teaching them that, no, everybody's not comfortable with seeing that, but also no one can help you. because nobody can read the dramatic stuff.
Yeah. I just know you're upset.
I just know you're upset.
I got that part.
So
what's making you
get rid of that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying don't do it, but go let that out in private.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're done, feel free to come back and talk about whatever.
Yeah.
And she does it. I mean, because she's young, she does it in like a funny way. Like she'll walk away, come back, and she'll be like, "Mom, I'm done. I'm done now."
All tears.
The tears are over. I finished, so we can talk about this.
Yeah.
But it kind of allows her that like respect in some way to say like you're allowed to cry, but I can't do nothing for you while you're doing that.
So that also teaches them, all right, so I get it. If I cry, it's just showing the emotion. So I can't come to you crying. I have to get that out the way, and then I can come tell you what's going on. I'm teary, but I'm not the hysterical.
What's funny is now I don't have to tell her to go to her room or to separate herself. When she gets upset now, she just walks away. Like when she's about to cry, and sometimes I almost feel guilty because I'm like, oh my God. But now she literally gets up, and if I told her no, or she got in trouble for something or whatever, she literally gets up and she'll go upstairs to her room and close the door. And I don't have to tell her anymore. And then she'll just come out and, you know, she'll sometimes like to comfort, like, "Mommy, can I have a hug?" or whatever. But she doesn't cry a whole lot in front of people. Like she'll cry. She'll start to cry and then she'll go upstairs.
Wow. Practice.
So the next one is permissive style of parenting. So permissive parents, sometimes referred to as indulgent parents, have few demands of their children. These parents rarely discipline their children because they have relatively low expectations of maturity and self-control. Permissive parents are more responsive than they are demanding. They are non-traditional and lenient, do not require mature behavior, allow considerable self-regulation, and avoid confrontation. So self-regulation is exactly what it sounds like. So we self-regulate by controlling the way we act, right? So this means that this parent kind of allows their child to just do what they do.
Whatever you want to do. I've seen those parents too. And all right, so can I say this real quick? So I know this is a no judgment zone, but for you, this parent can't stand you. Can't stand you. You know why I can't stand you? Because then your child believes that this is how life really works, and as they become an adult, this is what they carry over to other adults. And in real life, you can't be that way. It's not okay. There are boundaries. You see those people that have no boundaries. It's like, what are you doing? This is not okay.
Well, you hate this last one too, then. So the last one is kind of really simple, though, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot to go into this. It's like, and in the research that I'm reading, it's like one paragraph. It's like this big. The last one is called uninvolved parenting. That's pretty self-explanatory.
I already know where this is going.
Or neglectful parenting. These are characterized by few demands, little to no responses, very little communication. These parents fulfill child's basic needs. So basically, you're not fulfilling like any type of emotional expectations or needs in the child. You basically like give them shelter, make sure they're fed, but they don't get any guidance, structure, rules, support, anything like that. And in extreme cases, these are parents that are neglectful of even needs like shelter, clean clothes, food, whatever. And really quick, along with I don't even want to talk about that parent a whole lot.
I'm good.
But in the same study, it went into the result of these parenting styles. So authoritarian parenting styles generally lead to children who are obedient, proficient, but they rank lower in happiness, social competence, and self-esteem. So these are kind of the kids who aim high, but emotionally, they're probably really low because they've never felt supported or encouraged or been made to self-regulate, as I said before. They're kind of given all this direction, but never explain why to do that. So they don't have any kind of self-esteem or anything behind it. It's just like, this is the way the world works. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And it's because I told you that. And that's not really realistic in what motivates us.
No.
You know, we do things because we believe in it, or because we see some value in it, or because we understand it. And with that kind of parenting, that's not the way that child learns. That child is just learning by pure direction. Go do this, do this, do this. It's the right thing to do. And it's only the right thing to do because mom or dad said so, or whoever's raising you said so. So in that case, that child, as a form of foundation, is kind of lost, but they strive to do well because they're expected to do well. So the inner stuff is kind of...
It's very important. I mean, you're building, it's like building a house. You know, you have the foundation, you have the studs, you have the walls, and you can build walls without insulation. The insulation is what you put inside to make you feel good. So, you know, children need that starting out, because I always go back to this. It's the actual adults that we see. We're like, you killing me, Smalls. Like,
because they don't, as an adult, you don't have, like, you're looking at them going like,
who raised you? Like, I literally had asked people, like, who raised you? Where's your parents?
Raised by wolves?
Yeah, raised by wolves, heathens. Like, who are your parents? Because a lot of times they're just kind of so detached from reality. They believe that life is this way. And, you know, to this point of saying it's my way or the highway, or because I told you so. I've seen people who are bosses like that. Like, do it because I told you, and I don't understand, like, why do you want me to do it?
And a lot of times it's easier to get people to do things when you explain it.
Just explain it to them. But
like, if it makes sense, they're like, oh, okay.
Or I never thought about it like that.
And all of a sudden you got this, like, I got it.
For children, it's good because they get to understand that I did not realize that was important. Now that I got a clear understanding, I can do it and execute it.
Well, let's not confuse them, because that's the authoritative parent.
Well, I'm just saying, if you give them directions, so tell them why.
The authoritarian parent and the authoritative parent are very similar in the fact that they're very assertive and they give direction and they have, like, high expectations. But the authoritative parenting style tends to result in children who are happy, capable, and successful. So those kids are the kids who got direction, they got some input, they did get, like, do this, it's the right thing to do, but this is why. And kind of gave them full circle of an explanation, where you have, you know, authoritarian parenting that did not explain any of that, and they're just kind of, what is that? Common sense is not common.
Common sense is not common.
They're those people, not common. Like,
you know, I wonder, listening to this, Donald Trump's parents.
Oh God.
It seems
permissive parenting. This is them.
They're mixed with that, and I think, what is it?
Authoritarian?
Authoritarian.
Because he's not obedient. See, permissive parenting often results in children who rank low in happiness and self-regulation. These children are more likely to experience problems with authority and tend to perform poorly in school. And then you have uninvolved parenting, ranks lowest across all life domains. These children tend to lack self-control, have low self-esteem, and are less competent than their peers. Well, there's Donald Trump.
He has a mixture of a few of those.
Yeah.
But you think about, like, people in power. Obviously, it was raised by somebody, and how are they raised, and why they do the things they do. A lot of times, 9 times out of 10, it's not their fault. It's what they've been taught.
And it's funny because when you look at all 4 parenting styles, of course, this research came out that the authoritative parenting style is by far the best parenting style because it's viewed as something that's reasonable, fair, and that the children are likely to comply with the requests that parents make. Parents provide rules as well as explanation to the rules, so the children are more likely to internalize rules as life lessons because they have a way of rationalizing behaviors. If you tell them, no, don't do this, don't touch the stove because it's not safe because you will get burned. They're going to remember, if I touch this stove, it's hot, I will get hurt and I will get burned. So if you just say, don't touch the stove, all they know is I'm not supposed to touch that. I don't know why.
Right.
Until they reach up there like most kids do and either get burned or feel that it's super hot. And that's why, like, parents, it's strange because even when you explain this is why you should be explaining, there are some parents who have that very, like, just old school mindset that are like, no.
I'm the parent, you're the child. How many times have you heard that?
I'm the parent, you're the child. I don't have to explain anything.
Anything. Just do what I tell you. Do you have money to pay for these bills? Like, you think because we are doing part of what you're saying, the opposite of uninvolved, where we're actually taking care of the child and making sure they got clothes and food and shelter. You think that gives you the right to pretty much...
like, be a dictator.
Yeah, be a dictator to your child. You got to understand, once again, they're their own person. And
you're nurturing a whole person.
You're nurturing a whole person.
Like, a person that's not going to live with you.
After a while.
They got to go out into the world by themselves. And
this is what you got. And you wonder why, as they get older, they don't come around anymore, or they don't they don't talk to you as often because you nurtured that into them. And it trips me out when I look at kids, and I'm like, dang man, I see what you're going to be in like the next 5 years or 10 years. And
then parents get so insulted.
They do, but it's too late at some point. Like,
parents get so insulted. So I mean, obviously, you know what I do. So I've worked with a lot of parents where I try to just implement small things where I'm big on reward systems. Thank God I have a child who's not like she's not an angel, but she's not like bad, I would say. Where like discipline is something that has to be in place all the time. But I mean, I've had parents that have like some pretty rambunctious kids and, you know, come up with some different cool, like reward type systems where, you know, your reward is on the front end. So things like video games or snacks or, you know, whatever that a child can like work up to having, or, you know, parents go like, oh, I only let my kid play video games on the weekend, or they only get this much time throughout the week, or they, whatever it is. And I'm like, okay, fine. If you have that in place, use that. You know, if you know there's something they like or something they really want to do, then use those things to your advantage, whether it be a, you know, allowance type thing where they're earning money along the way, or, you know, I heard this cool thing on the radio the other day where there was a parent who literally made her whole house into a business. Like, their chores were worth money, but any money they earned went into a bank account, and she had like mom's credit union, and they were earning money, putting it into their bank account. They had to like balance a checkbook. They had to, you know, buy whatever, you know, she had parameters on things they were allowed to buy for themselves. And they were earning it by doing their chores. So she had the chores. She even had what was really cool about it was she had a job fair in her home. And the job fair, yes. And the job fair entailed things like kitchen manager or like whatever it was, you were like that. You were the master of that.
I love it.
And you applied for that job, and that was the job you got. And she had like salaries for the job.
Did you have the interview? They had an interview for the job? Like, yes. This is why
she did interviews. Yes, they had to write resumes.
These kids are going to be outstanding.
And it was funny because I was listening to it and I was like, damn, she put a lot of work into that. But when I was thinking about the real life like concept of it, I was like, wow, these kids really got like an inside look on what like adults really have to go through to do certain things and to like earn a paycheck.
To survive.
And I think because she put so much work into that, they have like a working understanding of this is what goes into having a career and supporting a household and working together and the team concept or, you know, just earning things. And she had interviews, she had mock interviews for her kids, like everybody interviewed for their job.
I love that.
She had salaries for the kids. So, you know, whatever job they applied for, there was a salary for that job. So they knew what they were getting. It was crazy. And I was like, the only other thing that I probably would implement after that is that would be kind of your motivating factor to getting money. Like if you had a salary and you were like the type of kid that, you know, say was aggressive in school or talked back to the teacher or whatever, or didn't do homework, like that would be worth money. So say like you missed a homework assignment and you earn $5 a week. You know, we'll probably put like popsicle sticks or something like in a jar, and missing a homework assignment is worth 50 cents. You pull it out. So at the end of the week, whatever is left in the jar is what you get.
I'm using that. I love that.
So this way
and you can get fired. So I love that.
That's what I'm saying. So this way, or you know, you're not technically you're not getting fired if you do your job that week and you did things that took away from that, like didn't do homework or whatever, then you didn't earn money that week.
That's true. But if you're bad,
and that's your consequence. Or if you didn't do your job one day, your pay gets docked because you didn't do your job. You know, so, but those are the things that take away from that allowance. And because you already have the things in place that you're allowed to purchase with that money, you're losing by your own doing.
I would say this to parents. Allowance is extra money we give our kids to teach them lessons on how to maintain. It's not for them to pay for you rent or pay for light bills or food. I've seen parents do that. I'm like, doesn't make sense. Like, you're going to do that anyway if they were doing the chores or not. This is teaching them life lessons on earning money, and it's your money. So when you go out in public and you ask me for something out of the store, guess where that's coming from?
Or
your money.
If you want to implement the idea of paying utilities and paying rent, you can up what that job is worth then say the rent and whatever is coming off the top of it.
Yeah, $5 a month.
Yeah, so if you're not, so this way they have a concept of like, oh, I earned $100, but $20 went to rent and $10 went to electricity and $10 went to whatever. And then they're really only ending up with, you know, whatever.
It's kind of like the Cosby Show. Bad reference, but you know what I mean. Like the Cosby Show. They had that on the Cosby Show. He took the money out of his hands. It was the monopoly money, and he kind of showed what life looks like. I love that, especially like from what you're saying, in real money.
Yeah, because
that right there.
Yeah, because if you up your price on like say a chore in the house, you can say they're earning $50, $60, $70, and you have no intention of giving them that, right? Because we can't afford to give our kids $50, $60, $70 for a chore.
Right.
But you can say, you know, I don't know, if you're religious, you can say like, this is going to tithes, this is going to rent, this is going to this, because that's what happens in real life. And then your paycheck is really like only $20. So they have a concept of, damn, when I work, I make all this money and I have to pay bills. And that money is all getting spread out. And this is what I have left over for me to do with whatever I want to do it with.
I like that. I like that. I think as they get older, I wouldn't do that to like a 10-year-old, but like a 15, 16-year-old, we getting ready.
But you could kind of, I've done it with, I haven't done it to that extent, but I've done it with like 5, 6-year-olds. Like the popsicle stick thing. I used checkers one time. They're black and red. So for the black ones were like everything they did good that week because the parent didn't. And these are also for parents too, like the parents who don't like punishing their kids. Mm-hmm. This kind of gives those parents a way of having real life consequences without being the punisher, right? Mm-hmm. Is that with this particular like behavior, what I was doing was the black checkers were like good. So if you did your homework, we had parameters, of course, like if you did things that they typically struggle. So the trick is to make the good things that you want them to change. So say you have a kid who struggles with doing homework. They get a black checker as a good checker for every day they did homework. So if they did homework Monday, they get a checker. If they did homework Tuesday, they get a checker. You know, if they are supposed to do dishes every night and they struggle with really doing them, they get a checker for that every night. So at the end of the week, you know, and if they don't, they get a black checker because that's the bad one. And what we were doing was we had 3 jars and you had the end of the week jar. So every time they did their good things, they got a thing in the jar. Every time they did a bad, they got a thing in the jar. At the end of the week, we had small prizes for every week. We had a little chart, and the prizes they weren't crazy things. They were like quality time with mom. You know, so an outing with just the mom to spend quality time with mom, or 30 minutes at the park, or, you know, 20 minutes at whatever. Yeah. And at the end of the week, you shook up the jar and you just pulled out one. So if he pulled out a good one, then you got your reward. If you pulled out a bad one, then it was like an additional chore for the following week or something like that. But the idea was, because then you don't know what you're getting. Right. But the idea was, on the big scheme of things in life, right, if you do more good than bad, chances are you end up with good. Yeah. And if you do more bad than good, chances are you end up with bad.
I love it. I love it.
So it was kind of one of those things where you look at how you parent and identify, how can I empower my child to become a prosperous, powerful member of the community without demeaning them or abusing them or making them feel like they are less than, or creating this power struggle within the home where they feel like, oh, I just have to respect and follow directions and never be who I am, like just make my parents happy. It's really about empowering them and creating an individual that is self-motivated and innovative and creative in their own way, and and it's hard to do because we all have it, this like idea of what we want our kids to be. Or we go like, oh, when I was little, I wanted to be this. Right. And you want your kid to be that. Yeah. Or you see parts of you in your kid. Yeah. So it's hard to do. It's not easy to do. And next week, I'll bring you some more. We'll put the little chart on our page, and also be down below in the link as well, so you'll be able to see exactly everything we talked about today. We'll tie it all together next week because we talked about discipline, we talked about parenting styles and how that looks together as discipline, right? And to Amanda's point, find a healthy balance. The world is not easy, but it's not all bad either. So discipline is not a bad thing if you do it in the right manner, I believe. And what's right for you may not be right for others. Just find that balance for what works for you and your family. So with all that being said,
Make sure you go ahead and follow us on all the social media links on Facebook, Morning Coffee, on Instagram at Morning Coffee, and on YouTube. Go ahead and click the subscribe button right down below. Also, you can follow me on Instagram at P Hakeem.
Unmatched, unapologetic, something.
00 dash
2.5.
It's down here at the bottom.
I don't know. _25 exclamation point. No, I was joking. But
it's down below.
Do that.
Just click on it. Appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much, and we'll catch you next time.